Hello, welcome back to the channel. It's me, Emmy the Cat Lady, and we are continuing in getting you your Robotics Expert perk by talking about the robots that exist in Fallout. So today we're going to talk about the pride of General Atomics, the Mr. Handy. So this line of robots, the Mr. Handy line of robots, was built and created by General Atomics International, and it was first introduced in 2037, and the model proved to be tough and reliable, only requiring a single major hardware update in 2039, which was to fix a bug in the control of the multiple arms. And the unit had a Cal Power 238B nuclear power unit. It could carry out self-maintenance and repair other units. So it was sold as a general construction and maintenance robot. And as the decades passed, the design started to become a bit outdated and superseded by newer designs from other companies. So to avoid losing their share of the market, General Atomics partnered with Robco to redesign the Mr. Handy. So what they created was a much more sleek design that was capable of self-programming and initiative, essentially a form of kind of learning and artificial intelligence, and the number of arms were reduced to 3. So it proved to be a very successful and popular domestic robot that was capable of all kinds of household tasks, cooking, cleaning, gardening, and even childcare, and they could also be employed in other roles like cashiers, office security, and even medical care. The popularity of the new design was so high that new models were created for specific applications such as the Miss Nanny and the Mr. Gutsy. So let's take a look at the design of these robots. So the original design that you do find in the classic Fallout games has a barrel-shaped body which houses the CPU and the power source. There's a head on top that has sensors and a voice synthesizer, which is quite basic. That has a pair of thrusters, one on each side, that let the unit hover, meaning it's not hindered by things like stairs. And it's got 6 arms that have a lot of strength, but also flexibility and coordination that allow the unit to do anything from walking the dog to wielding miniguns and other heavy weapons. So you can encounter one in Mariposa that's inactive. If you can repair it, it'll deactivate the force field emitter for you, and this one is known as Unit 462. There are also old Mr. Handy units found in the demonstration vault. In Fallout 2, you can encounter them in Gecko's nuclear power plant, which was formerly the Poseidon oil reactor number 5, and there's also a malfunction one in Klamath Canyon alongside the crashed Enclave vertibird. The Robco design is quite different. So the body is spherical with a single thruster and a better brain that does have the capacity to become a true AI. There are behaviour limiters in place to prevent this from happening, but these can be bypassed in some cases, such as with Curie from Vault 81. So this model has 3 eyes on stalks, which give an almost 360-degree field of vision. They also have 3 arms instead of 6, so their ability to lift heavier items is reduced compared to the original model. However, there are several options for attachments for these arms, ranging from pincers to titanium saws, flamethrowers, and even plasma weaponry, so they can be customised to suit the intended purpose. They do come with a sophisticated sensor package that includes things like navigation, olfactory, so chemical sensing, which is what the sense of smell is. Olfactory is our sense of smell. And even radiation detection. They're capable of self-diagnosis and self-maintenance, and they even feature a condensator that can produce purified water. So, they definitely kind of multi-purpose robots that could be really useful to have around. And the default voice is that of an English actor named Sebastian Leslie, who was a friend of Cooper Howard before the war, and it was based on a character he played, Bartholomew Codsworth, who was a butler, because for some reason butlers always have an English accent, this one being the kind of typical sort of RP English accent, because there is quite a range of different accents across the UK. For another example, Whitechapel Charlie, who's the Mr. Handy that runs the third rail in Goodneighbour, he's got a Cockney accent which comes from the kind of eastern part of London. Because even the City of London has different regional accents. That's how varied it is in the UK. So Sebastian sold his rights to the rights to his voice to Robco for $186,000 after Robco bought the studio that he worked for, which wasn't really a lot of money in 2077 America, especially for someone that is, working in Hollywood, is working in film and TV. That's really not a lot of money, but anyway, that's how much he was paid to provide the voice for these robots. So when it came to marketing this new Mr. Handy, it was sold as the perfect domestic robot. It can take on all kinds of household tasks: cleaning, cooking, pet care, childcare, gardening. Wasn't designed for combat, but it could perform basic security functions for offices and such like, and they are found in some vaults as well. Interestingly, you can actually go through a quality assurance program for the Miss Nanny variants at the General Atomics factory in Boston. It's an unmarked quest where you have to handle different childcare situations appropriately. I mean, it shouldn't be too difficult. I'm sure you can figure out that a toddler shouldn't be able to get their tiny hands on a machete. Bear in mind that side quest is a little bit buggy. It's easy missed if you don't do it on your first visit to the location. And if you've got a traumatron that sends you there, so you can deal with all that stuff, and then you can actually miss it, and then unfortunately you're not able to do it if you leave and then come back. So bear that in mind. But it's quite a funny little thing, where you have to basically do that, and you do get rewarded with some fusion cores and some other miscellaneous loot. So not the most exciting thing, but it is kind of fun. And then we need to talk about some of the varieties. I say they made different versions based on, different kind of functions, that kind of thing. So there's a range of products. So you've got the Mr. Gutsy, which is one of the more common and dangerous variants that you might encounter in the wasteland. It has a different voice, which is a kind of stereotypical American drill sergeant kind of voice that barks orders at you. Mr. Gutsy is the military version, so it's usually painted in the typical kind of army green colour, but you do see different ones like the winterised ones in Operation Anchorage, which are painted white to better blend in the snow and the ice, and the Enclave ones have a black paint job, so there is some variation. They're built with lightweight and tough armour plating, and they're equipped with a plasma caster as well. Their main benefit is their manoeuvrability. Compared to other combat robots, they're quicker to move around, they're not as hindered by stairs or uneven ground, things like that, compared to, say, the Sentry Bot. And their software even allows them to refuse orders for military personnel who they deem incompetent, or if they are under court martial. And this is something that's demonstrated by Sergeant Ariel 3, who's a Mr. Gutsy that can be a companion in Fallout 3, who states this outright. The problem was that corners were cut, so in the absence of orders, such as when the bombs fell and everybody died, they become aggressive towards anyone they don't recognise or see as a commanding officer, and the higher level Gutsies could be given higher military ranks, which we see in Fallout 4 particularly, that you can have a Lieutenant Gutsy and you can have a Sergeant Gutsy, and they can kind of be higher ranked, and that means they're obviously tougher enemies as well. So quite an interesting one, and definitely a bit on the dangerous side. I say they're a wee bit more breakable than Sentry Bots, but because they can get around things, they can kind of get around a lot faster, so definitely something to be wary of. And then we have the Miss Nanny version, which has a white shell and a feminine voice with a kind of French accent, and these ones were just specifically designed for childcare, and they were utilised in vault nurseries and places like that. They had specialised software for discipline and behavioural management skills, as well as hazard detection, so they can childproof a room. There's even a programme that analyses vocal tones of children to interpret their needs, especially obviously babies and toddlers that can't speak yet, so they can recognise the different tones of the cries to figure out what they need, and act accordingly, such as recognising when a child is hungry. There is also a corporal punishment feature, but it's disabled by default, and needs to be manually activated by the parents, because of course there is. And that's kind of what you see if you do the little side quest where you go through the quality assurance process for these robots. And you can kind of see, so like the first one, is that the child broke an irreplaceable heirloom vase, so you have to punish the child, and you do that by taking entertainment away, so you turn the radio off. The second one is a baby in a crib, and it's actually a teddy bear, and the cry, so you have to figure out that the cry means that the baby's hungry and take the bottle and put it in. And then the final one is to child-proof the room, so you have to take away the box of Abraxo and the machete, and I think there's a spanner or some kind of tool or something that you have to pick up and take them away to make it safe. So that's kind of the process. So yeah, it's kind of silly and kind of funny. But the software does lend itself well to other purposes. So you've got Miss Edna, who's the teacher's assistant at the little school in Diamond City. And then, of course, there is Curie, who was extensively modified to help with the medical research and archiving the data from their experiments that took place in that secret part of Vault 81. And Curie has gone on to become a true AI and can even request to be put into a synth body, which lets her experience what it's like to be a person, both the good and the bad. It's an interesting one and a little bit weird. And there's quite a few other variants in the Wasteland that have specific purposes. So if you go to New Vegas Steel, there's the Mr. Steels that are designed to work in the steel mill. The Y-17 medical facility in Big Mountain, which was designed to do experimental procedures and surgery. You've got the Mr. Orderlies, and they do fight a bit more like Gutsies than Mr. Handys, these Orderlies. But there is a unique one, like everything in Old World Blues, and that's Dr. Orderly, MD, PhD, DDS, which means that he's a medical doctor, a dentist, and he's completed a PhD of some kind. No DVM though, so I guess becoming a vet was just too far for this guy. And apparently there is also a Mr. Torturer at the Robco Research Centre in Appalachia. I don't remember seeing it from my time with Fallout 76, but I know a lot has been added to that game since I last played it. As I mentioned before, I did play it at launch, but online games, like multiplayer games, aren't really my kind of thing. So I haven't really kind of touched it for quite a long time. But apparently there is a one that's specifically programmed to torture people, so, you know, that's fun. So some of my favourite ones are there's quite a few notable ones in the games, and Rhonda is an interesting one. So Rhonda is Tabitha's best friend, and if you can repair her, then Tabitha will lead her Nightkin army away from Black Mountain without any further violence. And the radio transmissions are quite entertaining too. Quite a unique relationship there between Rhonda, the Mr. Handy, and Tabitha, the Nightkin. So that's quite a fun one. I do love Codsworth. His loyalty is impressive, and, I feel bad when he spent 210 years trying in vain to keep your old house clean and stop the car rusting, and he's just... he's obviously been quite lonely and things, and the fact that this robot can be so distressed, it's fascinating. But I do love Cosworth. I like Whitechapel Charlie as well. His Cockney accent and his Union Jack on his chassis is quite fun. Whitechapel is an area of London, so the fact that he's got this Cockney accent rather than the typical English accent that the other Mr. Handys use. He's nicely snarky and fun to talk to. And I think Snip Snip from season 1 of the TV show on Prime, it provides some real comic relief to quite a serious moment where he says, "Absolutely disgusting, we would never use you as a sex slave, I'm simply going to harvest your organs." And the fact that he's like, "Oh, where are you from?" "Oh, I've never been there myself, I would love to go there soon," and he's just not even listening to what Lucy is saying. It's just so funny. And you can find these robots, they're very popular, so they're found in all sorts of places across the wasteland. So the footage that I decided to use for this video was the General Atomics Galleria. So this was supposed to be a kind of shopping and entertainment centre that was entirely run by Mr. Handy robots. So the director's a Mr. Gutsy that lives in the big statue of Mr. Handy. And if you get the ID from the factory, you can go there and say that you're the replacement supervisor, because by law they had to have one human overseeing things. But the previous supervisor, something went wrong there and they ended up dead. So you have to, and if you've got the ID, or if you use a speech check, I think you can talk the guy around and you can launch the grand reopening. And then you have a handful of shops there. There's a Slocum's Joe donut and coffee place, Fallon's where you can buy clothes, there's a bakery. There's lots of fun little kind of environmental storytelling bits there, and some of the kind of different characters that have evolved to these Mr. Handys that are running the place. It's quite fun. It's quite a fun little place to explore, and it was obviously meant to be a kind of marketing thing for the robot as well, to prove, like, look how useful these robots are. They can do this. They can basically run these stores without any human intervention, and that's how great they are. So that was obviously the idea. I mean, there's a store where you can actually buy Mr. Handy's and Mr. Gutsy's that were on display. So, you go there, get a coffee and a donut maybe, and then see how well the robots worked and decide to buy one for yourself. I'm guessing that was the aim, but things didn't really go according to plan. But yeah, they're definitely an interesting one. I mean, you get a Mr. Handy in your player house in Fallout 3, whether you stay in Megaton, and then you get, I think he's called Wadsworth, or if you blow up Megaton and you go to Tenpenny Tower, then you get one as well. And one thing I always liked was the little kind of under the breath, like, I really hope you don't need anything, the little comments that they make under their breath. It's also quite funny if you go into the General Atomics factory, where the robots are all hostile in there, but if you you're in caution but they haven't found you yet, and the things that they say, it's really quite funny. So definitely a favourite of mine of all the robots, but they've got quite an interesting history there that you can kind of see across the games. You can see the different one that became more popular, because it's one thing about the technology, and while the technology in the Fallout world is very different to the technology that we have, there's always going to be that progression of, that as time goes on, people are going to come up with newer designs, with more efficient systems, more efficient hardware, all that kind of stuff. Although sometimes I think in our world technology is progressing too quickly, and it's really hard to kind of keep up with. It's just crazy that I have a phone that is so much more powerful than the first PC I ever owned. And the kind of storage space that's on it is mind-boggling compared to the computers that I had when I was still at university, and that's not even, I graduated like 16 years ago. So it's just crazy to me how quickly this all kind of moved along, because when I was in my final year of university, that was when the first iPhones came out. It's mind-boggling, but I think it's also very interesting to see that progression in the Fallout universe, and how this company were like, oh no, we're getting overtaken, other people are coming out with newer, better robots, we're going to get left behind. But their solution was, instead of trying to fight against the competition, especially as Robco started, taking more and more of a monopoly of the market share, instead of, letting them take over. Well, I guess they probably did, but they came to this kind of arrangement with Robco and worked together with them, which was probably mutually beneficial to some degree, but probably benefited Robco more, because that is the nature of that kind of business and the kind of thing that Robert House was trying to achieve. But you've got these robots that are interesting, and they're quite entertaining with the comments and things that they say, and you can have them as companions as well. And Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, you have the option of having them as companions in those games, and the Rhonda is a companion to Tabitha in Fallout New Vegas, so it's very, very interesting. But let me know what you think. Is this a robot you would want to have? I mean, in the wake of the rise of artificial intelligence in our world, as you probably know, I'm an author and I'm working on publishing and getting my debut novel ready for publishing and things. And, AI is getting into a lot of these creative spaces. And while I do think there's artificial intelligence has its place in things like medicine for, reading diagnostic imaging and biopsies and things like that. I know that technology is improving every day and that is a good use for it, but I don't like it being in creative spaces because I'm the one that wants to write the book. I don't want a robot to write my book for me. I want a robot to do all the boring household stuff so that I can just spend time writing my book. That's kind of how I feel about it, because it's the whole point for me is that I want to be the one that writes the book. I don't want to just throw in a few words and then let some robot spit it out at me, spit out a book, and then I just slap my name on the cover and that's it. That's not right for me, and I know a lot of my fellow authors feel the same way. I don't believe that AI should be getting into these creative spaces, and it's not even very good. I mean, AI generated images, human artists have trouble with hands, but and I've seen that in a lot of kind of creative spaces recently, and I don't like it. I don't like where it's going. It's horrendously bad for the environment as well, and it's in danger of taking away some of the things that make us human in that sense. But having a Mr. Handy that can clean the house for me and do all the horrible tasks, so that I can just go and create, then that's how I would want it to be. But all I've got really is Steve, the Roomba that does clean the floor. That's about it. But yeah, it's an interesting thing, and I think in Fallout we do see rogue AIs quite a lot and things like that going wrong. So I think it's very interesting to see that side of it. So absolutely let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll catch you all next time. Bye.